Hello, and thanks for joining us once again, diving into some of the murky world of AI. So there's been a load of announcements recently about being able to do fine-tuning with OpenAI inside of Microsoft Azure. What does that mean? Why are we so excited about it? How does that differ to things like RAG or just logging into ChatGPT and using the service and seeing how that works? That is the plan today. So we want to dig into fine-tuning your large language models, see how you do it, how it works, why on earth you would do it, how much it costs, and all of that good stuff. That is the plan. If you're new around here, as always, do not forget to like and subscribe. And this channel is brought to you by Advancing Analytics. We are a consultancy in the UK working globally to help people do data engineering, AI, analytics, and all of that good stuff a lot better than they were doing it before. That's our whole thing about how we work. So, as most of you know, I am an engineer by trade. I'm not the AI person. So obviously, we're talking AI. We do once again have Gavi back with us. Hey, Gavi.
Hey, Si.
How's it going? You good?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good. I'm glad it's the weekend.
It's not the weekend yet.
Soon.
Still on the clock.
I'm calm down.
All right. So, why are we here? What's going on?
All right, we're going to talk about fine-tuning large language models today. I mean, in the past, we've spoken about prompt templates, one of your favorite topic of conversations. We've spoken very briefly about RAG implementation, but today we're going to look at fine-tuning. And often when we speak to a lot of different people, people say, oh, we want to fine-tune models, but it's not really necessary. But it obviously has some use cases when you need to use fine-tuning or you need to fine-tune your models. And Azure just announced, I think last week, about the ability of being able to fine-tune large language models using the Azure AI Studio, Azure Machine Learning Studio, very, very quickly and very easily.
It's very cool. Because it used to be a mad specialist thing. You'd have to essentially pull down a massive model, feed it a huge amount of data, and then figure out how to host it yourself. So it was like kind of inaccessible for a lot of people to actually have enough GPUs to be able to do this stuff, honestly. But now it's just a little bit easier, a little bit out of the box, as provided as a service coming from Azure.
Exactly. It's managed. It's awesome. Managed all under the hood by Azure, so it makes it a lot more accessible, like you say, Si. So yeah, really, really an easy way to get started with fine-tuning large language models. We've got a bit of demo as well at the end of it, but just wanted to kind of go through, why we're looking at fine-tuning large language models here.
Very cool. All right.
Right. So, like I said, when we just started this a couple of minutes ago, we've spoken a lot about prompt engineering, and that's kind of a natural maturity curve, if you like. And that's to do with time, cost, whether you have the maturity within your business, your organization to do more advanced stuff. Now, once you kind of exhaust prompt engineering as a method, we then tend to do at RAG implementation, which stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation Techniques. A very, very, very powerful technique where you're kind of augmenting your data and making your data a lot more grounded. And then there's a more complex fine-tuning kind of method that people are trying to explore and look into. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And the announcement last week, based on the announcement last week, being able to now fine-tune 3 models using Azure OpenAI service, as well as Azure Machine Learning, actually. So you've got 3 models that you can fine-tune, your Babbage, your DaVinci, and your GPT 3.5 Turbo. Although, having said that, it's only available in North Central US and Sweden Central as regions.
Sweden Central is a bizarre choice of Azure region, but probably one where they have the GPUs especially recently put in that's unable to do this, so it makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I thought. Sweden Central, not Central US. I'm sure they're going to expand that in time. But if you are trying to fine-tune your models, you've got to make sure that the region that you are spinning up your Azure OpenAI service is either in not Central US or Sweden Central. Otherwise, a lot of the capability and options will be automatically grayed out.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so fine-tuning. What is fine-tuning all about? Now, fine-tuning is very different from prompt template and RAG, where you're adding data onto your prompting and trying to show the model how you want to get an output. Fine-tuning is all about adapting the weights that's under the hood of a large language model. So a lot more complex, but that's what fine tuning about. When people talk about fine tuning, it's not about it's about changing the weights totally to make sure that it looks at a more specific task.
Makes sense. I mean, what does that mean to a layperson? Changing the weights.
What? Sorry, I didn't get that.
So me, not a data scientist, you've got a large language model. What does changing the weights and biases actually mean to someone? How do they need to think about that? What's that? How is that different to completely retraining a model from scratch?
Well, so that's a good question, because within Azure, what they offer is a supervised fine-tuning method. So it's a lot more, I guess, cost efficient in terms of changing those weights, right? You're not trying to retrain it from scratch. You're taking a pre-trained model and adapting the weight ever so slightly. It's called supervised fine-tuning as well, and they use the famous LoRa technique behind the supervised fine-tuning.
Cool.
So yeah, so what you've got here, right, what you see on your screen is the three models that we spoke about, the Babbage and Da Vinci. Your Babbage and Da Vinci tend to be the smaller, lower latency models, and it's more capable of generating natural language code. And it only does completion. So it doesn't do your conversational task like the GPT 3.5 Turbo tends to do. And you can
so if someone's going for something fairly, they wanted it to be a bit more like ChatGPT, they'd need to go for the GPT 3.5.
Exactly.
If they just wanted it to generate some language and probably wanted it to be a little bit more lightweight and cheaper, they could go for Babbage or Da Vinci.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're just thinking of completion models, editing your emails or creating emails, creating new content, you don't need to use GPT 3.5. You can use a smaller model to do that. Yeah. So don't choose the big models because it's also quite expensive. Choose the smaller models.
Cool. Okay, makes sense. Anything that you really wouldn't be able to do with Babbage and Da Vinci there?
You won't be able to have a conversational. You won't be able to do your question and answer and have that as a conversation. You won't be able to do that. Okay. But if you're looking at just completion or generating the next word, next sentence, you'll be able to do that really effectively using the smaller models.
So if someone was trying to put it behind like their own chatbot, they couldn't use it. If someone wanted it as a one-off task completion kind of thing, absolutely makes sense.
Exactly. Oh. That's absolutely right. So now we've got the question that we get asked very, very frequently: to fine-tune or not to fine-tune. So when do you look at fine-tuning? And if I had to summarize this in one sentence, you would consider fine-tuning when you're trying to get the large language model to do a specific task or understand a specific domain. And you've got a couple of guidelines here, right? This is actually from the Microsoft Tech blog as well, which we'll put a link in the video. But if you're looking into fine-tuning and you're considering fine-tuning, then you're in a position of wanting to teach a model a new skill, where you're looking to summarize a piece of transcript in a particular manner, for example. If you want to show the model how to do something with examples, for example, if you're starting to pad out your prompt template and it's getting too big, then you'd probably need to consider moving that prompting into a model. You'd consider doing fine-tuning.
So that'd be something where, so if you're trying to get it to, like a Copilot kind of thing, you're trying to get it to write some code for you, and you wanted to provide a ton of guidelines and example of what good code looks like, would you use fine-tuning for that, or is that more of a RAG kind of scenario?
So I would always start with prompt engineering, and then we'll move on to RAG. If that doesn't give you kind of results that you're expecting, at least that provides a baseline to your fine-tuning model for you to compare. What is my fine-tuning model? What's the result of my fine-tuning model compared to the model where we implemented prompt engineering, for example? So if anything, we'd always recommend start off with your prompt engineering, then your RAG, then you do your fine-tuning, right? Now, with having a lot of prompts or trying to pad out your prompt template, that causes latency issues. So that takes longer and longer time for the large language model to process, to understand, and provide an output. So one good example, if you've got a prompt template that's huge and long and you're kind of experiencing latency issues, that's another indication to do fine-tuning.
Yeah, so every time you're asking it a question, you have to provide your full organizational guidelines. It's going to take a little while to understand that for everyone, and users are going to get frustrated. Yeah, makes sense.
Cool. So that's pretty much, so if you're considering fine-tuning, and if you fall into one of these three items here, then yeah, you're on the right path in terms of going down the path of doing some fine tuning on large language
And that
models.
message at the bottom, I think, is the important takeaway, right?
Exactly.
Most of the time, you can get away with prompt engineering and RAG.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, I've got another slide here just to summarize. Don't start with fine tuning if you want simple and fast results, right? If you want simple and fast results, try prompt engineering. That gives you an answer very quickly.
I think people kind of don't realize how big your prompts can actually be when using a Gen AI model. You know, you can write a lot in there, generally.
You could, yeah, absolutely. You can, absolutely. So if you want something quick, even if your prompt template is starting to look really, really long, but if you want some fast results, try it out, see what you get. You can even tweak it appropriately to get exactly what you want. So start off with prompt template or prompt engineering.
Cool.
If you need up-to-date or domain data, then you don't really want to be fine-tuning. You want to be using RAG with prompt engineering. So you want to augment the retrieval methods. You want to augment it with context and prompting, and then you want to use the large language model to generate the right output for you. Now, if you want to make sure your model is well-grounded with current data or company enterprise data that's not out there and avoid hallucinations, again, RAG shines.
Yeah, because then you're giving it the embeddings of the relevant information at the runtime when you're sending the prompt, not actually having to fine-tune it. Because I guess the moment you fine-tuned it, your model is only as accurate as the data that you fine-tuned it with.
Exactly, yeah. So really, most of the time, like in the bottom of the slide, you can get what you need using prompt engineering techniques and using your retrieval augmented generation techniques. But there's edge cases where you want to fine-tune LLMs, right? So what we're going to do is Azure has come up with such a quick and easy way that enables people to start playing with fine-tuning models with 3 simple steps. And that just includes uploading your data set, creating your custom model, whether it's Babbage, DaVinci, whether you're doing completion or you're doing a chat type model, then you use GPT 3.5 Turbo. And once that training happens, then you're looking to just deploy it.
I mean, one of the big questions that we always get when people are saying, "Hey, can you help us build our own LLM?" is how much data do we need? So realistically, what does that data set need to look like? What's the minimum amount you'd send into it? And what would you recommend for someone to actually do a decent job of fine tuning something?
I mean, that depends on the use case that you're fine tuning on, but the recommendation is at least 50 very, very good quality kind of lines in terms of having a good data set to start off with. But we've seen where some use cases require thousands of data points or data lines, in fact. So it really does depend on the use cases that you're working on.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so one of the questions that we get asked a lot is, how does it work under the hood and how much does it cost? So
Well, our screen's gone smaller. I'm just going to adjust this back up. There we go.
So there you go. So like you mentioned at the start of this, fine tuning is done as a managed service within Azure, and you're only paying for active training time and for successful fine tuning runs. Now, the pricing, obviously, you've got two kind of groups. You pay for training and you pay for hosting, and the prices varies depending on what kind of model you're training and hosting. So if you start off with a smaller model, which is your Babbage, you're looking at about $34 an hour, and it can take up to 5 hours to train that model.
So I think, grand scheme of things, compared to the hundreds and hundreds of thousands, and ChatGPT itself was like 250 million to do the 3.5 original model. I mean, yes, that can be expensive, but it's not that expensive compared to building your own large language model.
Exactly, yeah. It's far cheaper to grab a pre-trained model to try and then focus it a bit more. It's not cheap, but it's affordable.
Cool.
And then once you get past the training stage, you've got to host your model that you've pre-trained now. And then that, again, you've got hourly hosting, and it's also based on input tokens and output tokens. And the prices are all detailed in the table below on the screen there for everyone to have a look at. So that's about it. Really quick and easy in terms of understanding how you train or how you fine-tune large language models. But I've got a really quick demo, Simon. If you've got some time, we can go through it.
Absolutely. Let's see it in action.
Right, cool. So in terms of demo, right, when it comes to fine tuning, let's just get that up. Right, should be able to see my screen. Now
There we
you
go. Yep.
can, the ability to do fine tuning, you can do it either in Azure OpenAI Studio or Azure Machine Learning Studio. I'm going to show it in Azure OpenAI Studio today, but when you can, so if you, firstly, you got to remember it has to be not Central US or Sweden. And if you don't have those two, well, if you don't have a resource that is spun up in those regions, you're not going to see the options that I'm going to show on the screen here. So really quickly, right, what you need to do is make sure you have your data first. So Simon, what I've done is I've actually trained my a GPT 3.5 model to be a version of you, to be a helpful chat assistant. Yep.
I'm not helpful.
Well, a factual chatbot, but with a
Okay.
bit of sarcasm and fun to it. So what I've done is created this data set that you can see on the screen here. It's a JSON line format in terms of creating your data set. And I've got a kind of conversational data here that I'm creating. So I've got a couple of questions and a couple of answers. So for example, I've put here as an example, what animal has the longest gestation period? And the response would be the African elephant taking baby showers to a whole new level with a 22-month pregnancy.
I mean,
So
that is fair. That is basically me being helpful but sarcastic whilst I do it. That's fine. So is this data that you've used using your fine-tune model, or is this the data set that you're pushing into the model to fine-tune it?
that's it. That's it. I mean, here I think I've got about 20 lines, but what's recommended is to have 50 very good lines, and 50
Okay.
data points or data lines here. But I've not done that. For the purpose of this demo, I've kept it to 20. I just wanted to kind of show how you use that data set to fine-tune your large language models. So to do that, the first thing you do is you click on your data files,
Mm-hmm.
and then you upload your data set. It's as simple as that. So you can either drag and drop the JSON line format into the window here, and you're ready to go, right? You upload it. It takes a couple of seconds, and it just goes through the formatting and checks whether it's got an error or whether it's processed that file for you, ready to be used. So once you do that, then you're ready to go on to creating a custom model. Now that's the option here. So if you've not spun up the resource in the right region, you won't be able to see the create a custom model option. And it's as quick and easy as just clicking on that, making sure you're choosing the right model type. Now I wanted a Simon-based conversational GPT-like model. So I'm going to choose a GPT 3.5 Turbo. I can provide a suffix for good housekeeping. And then you click on your training data. So here I've got a Simon Chat 20, that's 20 lines, and you then proceed. Now it's always good practice to also upload a validation. So once your training is complete, you can validate your large language model with a validation file. And I've chosen to upload the Simon Chat 10 JSON lines. So simple as that. And you go through the options. I've kept the number of epochs to be default. And that's it. It starts a training job. And it's as
So
simple as that.
So what's the validation doing? Is that a little bit like, training and scoring data in a machine learning model? You're saying, here's some stuff to actually fine tune it on, and here's some checks just to see if you're close in terms of the response it's actually giving.
Yeah.
Okay.
At the end of it, you also get some metrics. So so this is what we've done before. I mean, it took, I think, 4.5 hours to actually train this model, but you can get some sort of metrics here. So when you click on it, it should be showing on your screen now. You get kind of graphs like this to show what the training loss is like. So gives you a good indication where, yeah, it's trained pretty well. It's ready for deployment, for example. You can go through the validation loss, validation total accuracy, and all the good stuff to kind of give you kind of the information whether is it a good model, or do I need to just go back and add more training data to it and make sure the quality of the training data is better than what I've trained it before.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And then now that you've gone through that, and now it's stood it up. It's it's stood up an endpoint you can just call and kind of pass questions into.
Well, yeah. So we've gone through uploading your data, training your model. The third step is about deployment, right? And all you do is you come to the model that you wish to deploy, you click on it, and you click on deploy. And that's as simple as it. So once it's deployed, you would use the model in the same way that you would use your chat functionality in your AI Studio Playground. So you'd come around here and you select your deployment type. Now I've got a fine-tuned GPT 3.5, which is my Simon chatbot. I'd click on that and I'd use it. I'd use my fine-tuned GPT 3.5 model in the same way that I could use the GPT-3 or GPT-4 previously in the AI Studio.
That's currently hidden behind our face, so let me just actually bring that in so people can actually see it. Ooh.
Yeah.
There you go. So a bit of config at the side, and you pick the relevant deployment, and then you can go from there.
That's it. It's as simple as that. So quick and easy, really easy to get started with, really easy to play around with it. So if you've got an edge use case that you need to be fine-tuning your large language model, and this is an easy, super simple way to, in terms of just trying to explore it, getting started, and fine-tuning your own large language model.
And that past messages included, is that more for the conversation also? How far back does it have context of the conversation as you're having it?
Well, I've got, yeah, exactly. So you've got 10 messages, and you can, that's a slider, you can change it accordingly, and you can even bring it down as low as 2. And I think you can go up to quite a bit, actually. So you can go up to about 20.
So a real conversation with Simon, it's only got 1 or 2 messages context before it starts forgetting things. Fine.
So yeah, so that's a quick tour in terms of, or quick demo rather, in terms of how you fine-tune large language model using Azure OpenAI Studio.
Awesome. Very, very cool. But again, so what we've done there, so that's kind of providing essentially a role and persona for your conversation bot.
Yeah.
You could achieve that via a prompt template. So, but it's going to be quicker here because you're not having to provide that content each time. Not that we're providing a huge amount of context for this kind of toy exam.
Yep, exactly. My content was make sure my response has got sarcasm, has got a bit of humor, and yeah, that's not a really long prompt for me to use prompt template. So yeah, exactly right.
Cool. Very cool. All right, and we're going to do a video very, very soon, looking at more RAG and how retrieval augmented generation is doing. So then you've got like that full picture of here's some things you can think about prompt templates and a bit of line chain or a bit of prompt flow and some of those tools that are evolving and growing. A little bit in the middle about, okay, if you need more detail or if you need up-to-date data, you need to not hallucinate, you can do some RAGs. And then if you get to the point when you're like, honestly, we just need to actually fine-tune a model and have a tailored model that we're paying to be hosted that has that context, we can use this now.
That.
Awesome. See? Data scientists all over. It's fine. Alrighty. Well, thanks for taking us through that, Gavi, and we'll talk about RAGs very, very soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, very cool. And that's all we wanted to go through today. So taking you through that, again, it is very, very new. Only announced last week inside of Azure, being able to do that, fine-tuning your large language models in Azure OpenAI. Only available in certain regions. Very, very early in terms of seeing it. But again, super easy to use, right? And that shows how quickly this stuff has gone from being this brand new experimental thing people are only talking about at conferences through to a, you know what, actually it's fairly commoditized, it's really easy to use, there's just tools making it super easy to get started with. So if you can spin up things in those regions, you can go and have a play with it now. Just obviously be a little bit careful because it's going to charge you for training the model, it's going to charge you for hosting the model, and you get charged per click each time you use the model. But if you're designing and building something that needs its own tailored large language model, never been easier than actually going through and using that tool. And again, you don't need a gigantic pile of your own GPUs to do it, which is usually a fairly good thing. So that is all I wanted to go through. As always, do not forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you again soon. Cheers.